I'm going to use plain old Gorilla Glue. It's an expanding waterproof glue. Not overly expensive, and it will stick for the rest of my natural life. So, as you can see, I've got a line on here. I don't want any glue above this line. So I'm going to slide my cork up there and put the glue on pretty liberally. I'm expecting it to run off the blank. Put a band on, rotate the blank, put another band on and rotate the blank, and do it a third time just for good measures. Now I'm actually wanting more glue than I need. So now I'm going to start sliding my grip on. Remember I said that glue would work almost like a lubricant, and that rear grip is going to just slide right down there, and it did. And I'm going to rotate some of that glue up on the collar of that grip. Get a little glue inside my butt cap, and there it is. So now all I have is a 3-hour wait. The glue is going to come up out of here, and there'll be a small amount come around here. So I'll stick a movie on and sit here and watch it and wipe glue off as it comes. I do this over a trash can, so because I'm in the house and that's a carpet floor, and so all my glue that comes off when I slide the cork grip down just goes off in the trash can. Just makes it easier for cleaning up. My rear grip is now dried. It's tight, all the way tight. And actually I'd done such a good job of getting a tight fit when I stuck it on there that I didn't have any excess glue ooze out around any of the places that you have to watch for it coming out. Just because I had a tight fit. Now I do have a tight fit on my real seat, but you can't get it tight enough that I'm going to have to sit here and wipe off the excess glue as it comes out, and there'll be some come out here on the exposed portion. There'll be some come out here on the front, and some come out in this area. And so I'll be sitting here with alcohol for probably 3 hours, making sure it stays clean. So before I glue it down, I've got my mark for my real seat alignment. Now on this one, I'm going to want that mark lined up pretty much like that. Only down here. I just don't have the mark down here. So I'm going to put some glue around this area and a very small bead around this area. Now, if this was one of the other real seats that fit a lot more loosely, I have some very heavy-duty rubber bands that would go from here to here and hold it down there snug. I just have designed this to fit so tight that I'm not going to have to hold it down snug. And once again, I'm working over a trash can to catch the drip of the glue, so I'm not making a mess on what is inherently a messy chore. So let me open my glue bottle and get ready to start. And I kind of got a bit too much on there, but I'll just wipe it up. but I want much more where the rod blank exits the cork. Now remember, you're working with a liquid, so you have to keep rotating the rod until you get everything in place to keep all your glue from dripping off. So as you can see, it keeps rolling around, and now I'm going to push it up in there and then look for my aligning marks and line it up. And there we have it. So now I'm going to take a dry paper towel and wipe some of this excess off. As much as I can. And if you look closely, you'll see that I've got some glue right here on the exposed blank. It's already made it in there. So I'm going to set the rod down and grab my alcohol bottle. Get just a little bit of alcohol on my rag. And all this part that's shiny, I don't want this shiny on here because this is all glue. There and in there. So I'm going to wipe it up just as clean as I can get it. The reason I don't use the epoxies made for gluing this stuff together, as I've mentioned before, is I want this glue to expand and fill every air cavity inside this reel seat so that it is all the way solid. And so now that I've got my initial glue in there and got it wiped down, I'll go to using Q-tips to wipe in there, which I have them here in my boxes of parts. So now I'm going to take my Q-tip and get just a little bit of alcohol on the end of it. And I can clean easily right in that crack. And around that gap right there. And what we want is this portion. The amount of glue I put in there will probably fill this up all the way up to here, or we're hoping it does. And ideally it's going to make a solid seal all the way around this exposed reel seat, and to help that around, I'm going to rotate it like that and let gravity feed that glue around the exposed section of the rod, and then I'll come back in a couple of minutes and wipe that off. And I want that portion right in here to get an airtight seal the first time, because I want to be pouring glue in this opening until the glue comes all the way up and seals here. And I'm going to make sure I don't make the super stupid mistake, and I'm going to take this hood off that holds the reel in place. I'm going to set it right here so I can't forget it, and I'm sure to put it back on before I put the foregrip on. And I put the foregrip on after I've done the decorative wrap, and that foregrip covers the ugly end of the decorative wrap towards the reel seat. Then I'll do a name weave out on the opposite end, and that'll cover up the ugly end on the tip side of the decorative wrap. So now, as you can see, I'm assuming that the light lets this little shine of glue right here shows. We'll try it like that. This is where the glue is seeping out. As we rotate it around, you can see it seeping out all the way around. And a very small amount seeping out right here. So we're going to clean this off. And we're going to keep this clean as it dries. Now this glue won't dry in 5 minutes. I think I mentioned before this is about a 3-hour ride. And so it'll just continually seep out. And every few minutes I'll come back to it and check it. And make sure that it has stayed clean. Well, I went and got some more Q-tips and some cotton balls. And you can see I've had a little glue come out, start oozing around and out here, and you can tell how far up the glue is run by how far on the inside of the real seat, by how far it's got a little bit of glue on the rod blank. And it hadn't run up quite as far as I want, but I'm going to wipe off the glue I've got for now. And this time I'm going to use a standard cotton ball, because it's more absorbent and it'll hold more alcohol, and I can use it several times. And you can clearly see the glue on the cotton ball. And I'm going to be sure that I get the glue off, not just smear it around. And you actually, at this point, you have plenty of time to wipe up the glue. It's not until 30 minutes or better has gone by that it starts to get tacky. It takes a while to set up. Now, if you remember, I said I wanted the glue to run down the rod portion here. So I'm going to turn that down and lean it up and prop it up like that, so that my glue will run down on this section of the rod blank. So let's give it a few more minutes to cure, and there you see my glue beginning to come out with a little more gusto. See the air bubbles and such in it? I have just a little bit here. I really am thinking I got a good tight seal into here, and this isn't going to be an issue. So I'm going to get me a new cotton ball, and I keep cotton balls in one of the drawers up here. Soak it down. And then wipe this off, and you see it's expanded since I've picked up the cotton ball. There we go. And you kind of fold the cotton ball over some of that I've already wiped off, because the alcohol will thin it, and you can just kind of smear it all around the rod if you're not paying attention. And now I'll get this part off the rod blank. Wipe this down one more time. And let me grab a clean paper towel and I'll wipe it dry. And we're looking pretty good. See a little bitty shiny spot there on the cork, and you see it still oozing up. So let's give it a few more minutes, and here in a little bit it'll get to where it's not coming out anymore, and I won't have to babysit it. Well, it won't be coming out as quickly, and I won't have to babysit it quite as closely. But for now, I got to stay right on top of it, because just in the time we've talked, we've had that much come back out. Well, I've had about 10 minutes go by. Let's get a look. So here we are 45 minutes after putting the glue on, and you see a pretty good chunk has come out right here, and a small amount around the rod blank, and I can see just a little glimmer of glue all the way up to here on both sides. So let me get my cotton ball that's still wet from the last time I wiped it down, and you can see that glue pretty easily on the cotton ball, or I can. Now, I'm sure you've already noticed, and I've said before, this is not a fast process. This is also why other rod builders don't do this. Very few do this. It's because of the time involved. And so if you're building a rod and looking to make a profit, you're either going to have to charge over $500 for your cheapest rod, or you're going to have to work and figure your labor time really cheap. Well, I went with the first option when I was selling rods, and 30 years ago my rod started $500 was the base rod, and I have no idea how I found people to buy them, but I did. And it was always a hobby. It was just a paying hobby, being as I started making them, and then a couple of people asked me if I would make them one, and I just threw a price tag out there, and they said yes, and I was totally shocked. And as long as I made enough money to buy myself several blanks to build some more and keep the hobby going, I thought I was doing good. Got a tax number, paid taxes. But this glue method, while it gives the maximum sensitivity, it's just not financially feasible to do it in a commercial shop. Now, if anyone ever developed an expanding glue that worked much faster, where you could be done in 20 minutes, well, that would change. But for now, that doesn't exist. So the standard is you wrap bands of tape around there and glue the reel seat to the tape. See, in 2 minutes I talked, I've had a little bit more glue come out right here. But my end result, and this is just the first gluing, I'm going to add 3 more times that I'm pouring glue down in here and standing the rod straight up and down like that, and let the glue run down all the way in here, and it'll probably run down to about here. And it's already solid enough that I couldn't move that reel seat without considerable amount of effort, but it is not fully cured, and glue will still keep coming out. And it could be that solid because I got a really tight fit whenever I sized everything. And I personally like that really tight fit. I like everything nice and tight, and I explained why before when I explained how vibrations travel through different mediums. So let's set this down and give it a rest for a while. Let it cure a bit, and then I will come back in a little bit and we will check some more. Well, it's been about 12 minutes of curing, and you can see my glue is still running out pretty readily, although it is getting thicker and slowing down. Got a little bit there around the cork. And a little bit there around the rod blank. Now on a larger reel seat, one that didn't fit quite as tight, and this is rare that you can get them to fit tight like this. I only have run across this a few times, but there will sometimes be a space here and here between the form of the reel seat and the rod blank, and when that happens, what I'll do is I'll cure it all the way, and in the same way keep it wiped clean. Then I'll take a black indelible marker and mark that little bit of glue that's exposed in that little bit of space there and color it black, and it will never be seen. But now that's not going to work well if I have glue on this portion because my finger's sitting there. This is an exposed blank rod seat, and I don't want glue on any portion of the rod blank that's not covered up by the reel seat or the cork. So that painting it with an indelible marker is just along the seam here if there's a little gap there, and I'm going to wipe it down in such a way as the gap is, you can't really tell the difference between the gap and the rod blank. You know, I want it to be a very smooth transition. And one thing I forgot to mention, so when you're getting your rubbing alcohol or isotropic alcohol, be sure and get nothing over 70%. Now I'm using a 99% solution that I have. It's not an issue because it's not painted. But if you've got a white rod or green or any of the new colors they are coming out with these days, you want to be careful about wiping the rod down with the alcohol, and check your cotton ball and make sure it's not starting to show some of the color of the rod blank, because you can strip the color right off of there on a painted rod blank. As you can see, we are just almost done. I've got no glue coming out on the exposed section of the rod, and just an extremely small amount on a small piece of the reel seat where the reel seat hits the cork. I mean, an extremely small amount. Now, something I forgot to mention when I was gluing this cork on is occasionally there'll be, this isn't a single piece of cork, it's a lot of smaller pieces of cork glued together. So when you're using the expanding glue, if there's any trail for that glue to follow to get to the surface, you'll have to wipe it off on the cork also. but we are just pretty near done on the rod, on the first section of gluing, or on the reel seat. And I've got very little glue coming out now, and this is set another 45 minutes. So it's noon right now. I put the glue on at 8:15 this morning, and this portion of gluing appears to be done. So from here, I will start pouring glue up in the top of the reel seat and let it rise all the way up to the top. Once it hits the top, I'm going to keep it wiped off, and I'm going to take some precautions to keep the glue off of the threads that hold the front hood for the reel seat. And so now I'm going to start pouring glue in through here into this cavity. And so before I do it, so that I don't make a bad mistake, I'm going to take and coat these threads with Vaseline, just in case the glue seeps out and I don't catch it. That glue will hit that Vaseline and it'll stick to that, but it won't stick to the reel seat. So I'll get me a little Vaseline on my finger and just go around there. Now, I've seen videos where people use tape, and there's nothing wrong with tape, but I'm using a different kind of glue, and there's a better chance of it coming out and getting where it doesn't belong. And it doesn't take long for me to clean the Vaseline off of it later. So anyway, I just use Vaseline. That's just the way I do it. So there it is. We got a good coat. So now I'm going to get my glue and pour a little bit in there. And I've done this a bunch of times, so experience tells me not to pour too much in there at a time. For one, I don't know for certain that this seal right here is all the way sealed up, and I don't want the glue just running out the bottom. So I'll pour enough in there and let that seal up to be for certain that there's no glue or airspace there for the glue to run out. And you see, you just drip a little bit down there at a time, and you let gravity pull it down to the bottom. So as you can see, I'm actually putting the glue on the rod and then leaning the rod over and letting the glue run down inside the reel seat. And then once it clears the top surface of the reel seat, I'm just going to let it just stand it up and let gravity do its work. And I'm going to wipe the glue off the rod blank where I put the glue against the rod blank to let it run down. So I'm going to stand it up here for a second and get me another cotton ball, get me some alcohol on it, and clean that upper edge off. And there we go. So we're going to stand this up and give it a little time to settle on down, and I'm going to come back and check it right here and make sure I don't have any glue running down on this area. So I'm going to come back and check it every little bit for a little while. And so this part is done for now. It's been about 3 hours since my last glue application that I put in right here. And I've had no seepage around here, which means I did get this reamed out to fit as tightly as I thought. My glue is up to about this point right here. So I'm going to put a little bit more in there. This will be my last application of glue for tonight. And being as it came up so much the first time, so much up here, I'm not going to put that much in here now because I don't want it to come up and overflow a lot. And I've done this a bunch of times, and I don't know how, but I managed to guess it just about right every time. So anyway, this will be my last application of glue. And when I wake up in the morning, it will be all done. But I am going to check it several times between now and morning. So there's the glue in it. And it will run on down inside and then start expanding up. And at that point, we'll have the real seat done, and we'll be able to start on our decorative wrap.